Okay, everybody. Good morning to my North and South American friends. Good evening to my European friends. Or good evening to my Asian friends. Good afternoon to my European friends. Gonna be a quick stream here. Busy stuff with the holidays. Have some family obligations coming up. Gonna be fairly quick. I do want to say, though, because I keep getting asked, and it's going to happen, I think early next year, you guys are going to have some opportunities to see more of this stuff on my website. How much of this is going to be, members only, we're going to see, but I'm doing what I can to keep it pretty open. Good morning, Kevin. We'll see, though. It's a lot of work, and we'll see how it goes. But holidays are upon us. Maybe some people are spending some BTC for Christmas gifts. We started to float below this 30th percentile to the extent that it is a support level. We were kind of staying above it for a couple weeks, past couple days. It's just an arbitrary line. All right, who knows if this is at the end of the day the support that's going to hold, but floating a little bit below it. Still means 70% of the time Bitcoin's been above this, statistically. Got some new charts for you today. So let's look at gold. This remains my favorite. Every day, statistically, gold is, relative to Bitcoin, setting a new low in price, meaning Bitcoin is, so say Bitcoin relative to gold, Bitcoin's getting cheaper every day for gold bugs, okay? So you see it's, 25 ounces, 26 ounces back in November. Now it's under 20. Bitcoin still rises, right, on this network adopting power law every day by, what is it? I believe 1/100th of an ounce a day. Let's look again on the curve. Six tenths actually. No, not tenths. Sorry. Yeah, close to 1/100th, maybe 2 or 3. 1/50th of a gold ounce. It's still, the trend still rises like that every day, but on the short term, medium term, every day it's looking cheaper and cheaper, the actual price, if you're a gold bug. Still more expensive than it was 3 years ago when it was 10 ounces of gold, all right, in the depths of the bear, the USD bear. But statistically, relative to the power trend, we are very, very cheap, all right? Unlike the dollar trend, where we are cheap, but not at historical levels of cheap, which we are with gold. New chart coming for you. Let's look at it in terms of silver. A lot of people have asked about this. It's a very similar chart as ever with Bitcoin. You can see the peaks and the troughs, but it has the same action as gold. And what's the number? 1,300 ounces. All right, and the trend is about 5,700. Similar dynamics to gold. Obviously, gold and silver are moving pretty much lockstep during this bull in commodities. It's cheap though. 22% multiple, 22% of the trend. It's actually probably right. Gold is about 32%, I imagine. Let me see it again just to give you 19.9 divided by 64. Roughly 30, yeah. So even cheaper. Bitcoin is it's throwing in even lower lows statistically against silver than for gold. 22% of the trend, that is the black line, Bitcoin silver, versus 32% of the trend, Bitcoin gold, versus 75% of the trend, Bitcoin dollar. So there's your levels. 70%. 70% of the trend. Probably would be good to have that multiple shown all the time, but I'm getting there. Improvements are coming on the UX for you guys as well. I think people will enjoy it. But anyway, important to point out with all of these, let's just do Bitcoin silver because it's the most extreme, right? When you see more white space between the bands, it means it's just rare. Right? So it makes sense that having these tops, like we did, say, Bitcoin versus silver back in 2013 was actually a high because that was silver was really high in 2011, then crashed. And so Bitcoin relative to silver was actually the highest at 45 silver ounces to one Bitcoin, which is wild. Because again, Bitcoin is, of course, outperforming over the long term, but over the short term, it looks bad on the rainbow. Anyway, very rare to be up here, okay? And also, very rare to be down here. So take comfort in that. Again, it's the same message I always have. I'm not trying to tell you how to day trade. I always give my Midwestern disclaimers. Even if we take around the 90th, 80th, even 70th, you can start to see with these bands, this is where the mode is of Bitcoin. It's mostly trading around this area where these bands are close together. Makes sense, right? In fact, as I draw this, 50% of the time, Bitcoin is between the 10th and the 60th percentile, as drawn on this chart, as it is relative to, a power curve. So if you're a silver bug, thinking about Bitcoin and thinking how Peter Schiff steered you wrong for 15 years, you might want to look at your stack and see what it can get you in Bitcoin terms, because it's still, Bitcoin is still expensive at 1,300 ounces of silver per one Bitcoin, but statistically it's quite cheap. Statistically it's quite cheap, being way down there. And so again, the big picture is fun here, right? So let's go back to the deep bear in dollar terms, 2022. Half the price. Bitcoin was only 700 ounces of silver in 2022. Now, even though we're statistically, according to the power trend, as cheap as we've ever been, you're still double the nominal price. More than that. A little bit more than that. 1,300 ounces. So, oh, sorry. I gotta keep getting messages about my audio. It will get even louder. Gonna have a new mic coming soon, which should be better. And I think this streaming software is dampening me too much. Been looking into it. I'm gonna switch. or just natively try it from OBS. But anyway, I have to work with it for now. I'm literally redlining on my gain locally. Regardless, if you're a gold bug, if you're a silver bug, statistically, Bitcoin's never been as cheap. Of course, nominally, nothing's ever going to be as good as, when Peter Schiff was telling you not to buy, when it was less than a tenth of an ounce or a hundredth of an ounce of gold in 2012. But statistically, we are at extremely cheap levels of Bitcoin gold, Bitcoin silver. Here's another one. Bitcoin versus the S&P 500. I've shown this one before, but I kind of cleaned it up, and we're doing with quantiles now. So there's a classic ratio, but the Dow gold ratio. So how many shares of the Dow could you buy with 1 ounce of gold? This is the same. So it's the Bitcoin S&P 500. And it simply means how many shares, or how many times over could we buy the index? Just taking the index as a unit. Okay. So it reached parity a little bit after gold. Gold actually around the same time. Gold reached parity, price parity, back in 2017. There you see it, right there. Winter, spring of 2017. Okay, 1-to-1. For the first time ever, Bitcoin also hit it at the same time, 1-to-1, interestingly enough, May 2017. But the trajectory will be a little bit different because of gold, because of the S&P, but also the AI trade is very much in here because the Magnificent Eight, plus Oracle, plus Broadcom, is all in the S&P 500. And here again, Bitcoin is as cheap as it's ever been, statistically. Dragging along that zeroth percentile. And this as well, I think, is interesting. Like I said the other day, we have a governor now. Not now, we've had it always, but, if you're holding liquidity in gold, if you're holding liquidity in silver, if you're holding liquidity in AI stocks, these people are going to take notice at some point to see sort of where's that trajectory been in the past versus today. And the short answer is Bitcoin always goes up. Right? Of course, gold stocks, they go up as well, but they go up in exponential fashion. Bitcoin goes up in power fashion. The trend line always goes up. But again, if you hold a lot of tech stocks, and you might be thinking, markets are pretty frothy, do I want to take some chips off, put it into a hard asset? Bitcoin is very, very cheap. 12, 13 shares of the index over you could buy with 1 Bitcoin. And that's low, right, relative to the trend. Again, nominally, always cheaper in the past. We can't go back to that, but these are like little levers. Remember the real estate analogy that I used? There's dollar per square meter rent, or euro per square meter, euro per square meter cost, and then the relationship of those two, which is the cap rate after expenses. So if any one of those gets out of whack, the market usually corrects itself. And that's where we are. And that's where we're going to be through Christmas. I've remained the last person calling the 4-year cycle dead. That is to not call it dead yet, but probably is. It's at least extended. All right. But like I said, I'm not going to call it over till it's over. Let's see what happens in January. Let's see if we don't pump amidst all the FUD. We'll see. Hello, Bitcoin Polska. Good to see you again, as always. It's going to be a quick recording here today. For those that didn't hear me, I got some family obligations I'm going to go to here in a quick second. 10 more minutes or so I'm going to record. Honestly, got a late start, but things are moving in the background. I know you guys want to play around with these regressions and the rainbow charts, so for the loyal listeners and the loyal fans, you'll have something soon. The 0th percentile Bitcoin Christmas. That's a good name. According to Stephen Perno, he's doing these weird cycles, which I haven't quite investigated fully, but you know, it takes more into account. Do log bottom, it's going to be weird. Hold on, let me go here. He takes more into account this period in 2011, this period, and then this might have been a fluke. And then the thought is another 100th percentile move could be in 2027, I believe was the year. So yeah, we might indeed look back at this as the 0th percentile Christmas. Log bottom's too wacky, I know, on this chart. But I got better charting software that's going to look even better once I get it online, better for the user. I want to do quick geopolitics because, you know, the war is always top on my mind. Trump is pushing for a Christmas peace here for many reasons, but a lot of people don't ask about the Kremlin. Here's Sean Pinner, who I've interviewed, hero for Ukraine, was captured and released, despite Zelensky saying he's ready for presidential elections and even backing online voting so Ukrainians abroad can participate. It's not what Putin wanted. The move is backfired. A smart piece of politics. He exposed the lie at the heart of Moscow's narrative. This was never about democracy or legitimacy. How could it have been from a 26-year dictator? Keep in mind, Putin's been in power for 26 years now. He started January 1st, 2000. With that excuse gone, Putin is left calling for more war because war, not elections, is the point of imperialism. So this is very interesting now. I mean, just yesterday, Putin again said, if they don't capitulate, we will make them capitulate. Not exactly sounding like he's following the Trump lines. And this is a big day for Europe. Just going to cut through the noise. Europe is going to do something today regarding the $210 billion that is frozen of Russian reserves throughout the European area. Some is in France, some is in the UK. Most is with Euroclear in Belgium. If you haven't read Bill Browder's books about his time in Russia, I highly recommend them. Red Notice and Freezing Order. Belgium says Russian assets plan going backward ahead of EU summit, which is today. He wrote this last night. I believe that a number of Belgian politicians have been threatened with death from Russia and they are panicking. They should resign if they can't be brave and do the right thing. So this is going to be the discussion today. Belgium, it seems like, is not going to get the security that they wanted as part of this plan. There's two plans. It's either use the reserves as a reparations loan, and again, there's trillions of dollars of damage to Ukraine, so it's clear that the criminal act of invading a neighbor is way higher on the totem pole than sovereign reserves, but that's another discussion. Or a straight up loan from Europe. So if something is going to happen today, it's pretty wild, and I'm going to be watching it. Hello, Pan B. Good to see you. We can. You got to write me more about it, though. I just have too little time on this stream today. I got some family stuff coming very, very soon. Let me see what you got. As a Ukrainian. Well, like I said, Putin's been quite clear in his statements yesterday that this isn't even the one that I wanted to show. He said in another tweet. I mean, you can see it online. He said basically, if Ukraine does not capitulate was the word he used, then we will make them capitulate militarily. So it sounds pretty imperialistic to me, and yeah, personally, I think there's a lot of kabuki theater. I don't think the Trump administration wants to give any guarantees to Ukraine. People are even wondering about Article 5 guarantees at the moment, so I'm not quite sure what Article 5-like guarantees will be for Ukraine. But yeah, let's see how these Christmas discussions go. Things are moving, though. Zelensky is playing it smartly, as I think he usually does, but we're going to have to see. There's so much more I wanted to show about this, but I just don't have time on this stream. All right, so this is updated through today from the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense. Getting close to 1.2 million casualties for Russia. So if you look at this chart, and again, I look at a lot of charts, think about momentum, you think about freezing something or stopping something, and you ask if Russia's going to stop this. Seems like people in the administration are not looking at that. Here's another one. If you ask about what the leverage that the U.S. actually has over Ukraine, don't forget that when Trump was elected, he was saying the U.S. has spent $300 billion, $400 billion, $500 billion on Ukraine. Actual numbers was 114 billion euros. That hasn't changed for a year. So Europe has spent 185 billion euros and has committed something like at least a 50 billion more than that, I think, even. You can find this at the Kiel Institute for the World Economy. And this is a sad, morbid figure, but it now costs Ukraine 250,000 euros in aid per casualty. Total. And Russia was running. Think about that the other side now. What does it cost Russia to send one of these young men to die into the meat grinder? It was much less than this for a long time. Now, perhaps not so much. And so it's going to be a war of, I don't want to say attrition, but it's going to be, economics are really going to come to the front here next year if Ukraine keeps taking out Russia's oil reserves, which is their biggest moneymaker, more than gas. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And I know for the hellscape that is Russia, where 2 in 5 don't have a toilet, for some reason there's a lot of people that support their belligerence on the hellscape that was formerly known as Twitter. But we're going to see. We're going to see how it goes. This is what I'm paying attention to today. Belgium will probably, from what I can see on Twitter right now, Belgium is sticking to not doing anything. They don't have enough assurance legally, internally, to agree to this. So we're going to see what the EU does. I think it remains up to Europe. And of course, the Ukrainians have been absolutely heroes to keep defending their land, fighting for us in the Baltics, as I've said, every day. I got to leave it there, guys. Got to run for family obligation, like I said, but thank you for tuning in the comments, as always. Pan B, good to hear from you. Bitcoin Polska. And keep calm, carry on. We'll speak soon. I'll try to do a normal show tomorrow morning. Take care, everybody. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.